Sam, I read somewhere that recruiters have between 30 seconds to a few minutes to scan a resume. And we talked about in the previous video that customizing resumes and cover letter get the attention of the recruiter. So in your opinion, what are the things that employers are looking in a candidate profile when they're scanning a resume to a specific job that the job seeker applied?
Honestly, it depends on the positions and many factors. So I'll speak from our perspective here at XM. And if I were to boil down the ocean here, I would say that we focus on soft skills. So I'm looking for strong communication, passion, compassion, people who have a growth mindset, approach with curiosity and assume the best in people. People who don't go below the line based on assumptions and kick into defensive mode. So people who love to learn and are engaged when they're surrounded by others who are passionate about learning and growing. So it's a lot right there. So if I was to summarize the approach, first things first. You look at the minimum threshold for technical skill set requirements. And mind you, there's always leeway in terms of, I'm willing to compromise a little bit on this compared to that. It's an organic, ever-changing thing when it comes to looking at candidate profiles. It's not so robotic of criteria A, criteria B, criteria C. Even if it seems like it might be that way. So in terms of what we look for is the minimum threshold for technical skill requirements, depending on the leeway that's there. And then I'd start focusing from there on cues for soft skills on the resume. So the language, the verbiage, and how the information is conveyed. There's a lot of that you can actually get from a person's writing style. You can tell a lot about their approach to teamwork, for example, from the way they word certain things on their resume. You can tell a lot about their approach to focus and brevity in terms of how they word things on their resume. I keep saying resume, not CV, by the way. CVs aren't really all that necessary. And it's a lot better to go with the resume approach. If you're looking at a private sector, of course, if it's not a PhD related, highly academic type of a position, of course, and it's an art form. Going back to one of the questions that I answered earlier, using the RIBS model, where you make sure that your information is relevant and summarized, that becomes an art form in terms of how do I compress down all my experience into
one page or 2 pages, right?
Exactly. And the answer to that is make sure that what you write on there is relevant to what you're applying for. Like at some point in my life when I was like 18 or whatever, I have a passion for automobiles, for vehicles. And I did a few months of a course for automobile restoration, and it's a great hobby. It's nice. I took it a bit too seriously, I think, by actually going to a technical institute and taking like a 3-4 month course for it. But am I going to list that? Am I going to list that down? Not really. I mean, I'll talk about it in terms of but I'm not going to go into great detail about that when I'm conveying that information on my resume. So just make sure that the information that you're communicating is relevant and impactful. And cut and trim. And when you think, I have it, read through it again and go, what is the company and the job looking for? Am I conveying that information accurately? Right.
I also heard recently that tell the employer that I'm here to solve a problem. Show them and not just tell them, right? In a project or numbers, like I was able to decrease the turnover, or I was to increase the profit X amount of money because I did this product. Show them that you can bring value and add value to the company.
Definitely, but be very careful because it's very easy to trip and fall into the approach of managing 2 metrics, which you don't really want to go with that, which is I did this because it resulted in X metric, or I did this initiative, or I carried out this project to fulfill a requirement of obtaining a certain metric. You don't want that. Metrics are great in the sense that they're a good measure in terms of how well you're doing to get to achieving your objectives. So if we follow the OKR model, so objectives and key results model, keep that in mind in terms of, because essentially you're describing initiatives that you are using to achieve a certain objective. And the key results that you're going to highlight are indicators of that success. Just make sure that you're framing it that way when you're describing things, and definitely show me, prove it, trust. It's the verification piece of your accomplishments.
Yes, those are great tips, Sam. Thank you. And again, if you like the tips, like and share this video, leave your comments below, subscribe to the channel, and tune in tomorrow for my final question with Sam.